These are the headlines we're following at this hour. South Korea posted another current account surplus in September amid slowing decline in outbound shipments thanks to a recovery in chip exports. Lower oil prices also played a role, making import prices cheaper. The trend is expected to continue for the rest of the year. Israeli forces continue their offensive against Hamas, saying they're now in the heart of Gaza City. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu once again says no ceasefire unless all the hostages are released. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is set to arrive in South Korea tonight. He is set to meet with Seoul's Foreign Minister Park Jin and President Yoon Suk-yeol to discuss Russia and North Korea's arms cooperation, among other issues. Good afternoon. South Korea posted another current account surplus in September. This comes amid slowing decline in outbound shipments thanks to a recovery in chip exports. Lower oil prices also played a role, making import prices cheaper. The trend is expected to continue for the rest of the year. Our economics correspondent Shin Ha-young reports.
South Korea has managed to keep its current account in the black again in September. Preliminary data released by the Bank of Korea on Wednesday shows the country posted a current account surplus of $5.42 billion. This is the fifth straight month that a surplus was recorded, and it was even greater than in the month before. The surplus growth comes on the back of a recovery in exports and lowered global oil prices compared to the same period last year. The goods balance, which tracks imports and exports, saw a surplus of $7.42 billion last month, recording a surplus for the sixth consecutive month. The country exported over $55.6 billion worth of goods, an on-year decrease of 2.4% and the 13th straight on-year decline. By items, shipments of semiconductors are still below last year's figure, but the drop has been slowing down. On the other hand, the drop in imports was greater than that of exports as the cost of importing raw materials dropped due to lower energy prices. A rise in dividend income from Korean subsidiaries located overseas also contributed to the current account surplus. Meanwhile, the services account, which tracks earnings and spending on overseas trips and transport, suffered an extended loss of $3.2 billion. Despite successive surpluses, the total surplus from January to last month is only around $16.6 billion, which is about 65% of the level for the same period last year. The BOK forecasts that the current account will continue to maintain a surplus in October and in the fourth quarter overall as well.
The surplus in the fourth quarter is expected to continue thanks to improvements in the semiconductor industry and strong car exports. But there's a chance the surplus may decrease compared to the third quarter due to uncertainties in oil prices and potential increases in energy imports for winter heating.
He added that despite the uncertainties, the surplus for this year is expected to meet the bank's outlook of $27 billion. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
To bolster the country's economic recovery, South Korea plans to ease regulations for major private investment projects. An oil plant and a K-pop concert hall among those projects that together are worth some $35 billion. Shin Se-byuk has more.
South Korea's government has pledged to ease regulations to expedite the investment project of major corporations as a means of supporting the recent economic recovery trend. This is according to Finance Minister Chu Kyung-ho in an emergency economic meeting on Wednesday.
To further fuel the ongoing economic recovery, the government will expand investments and promote consumption with the goal of revitalizing domestic spending.
To do so, the government rolled out tailored deregulatory measures for 18 private projects worth a total of 46 trillion won, or over $35 billion. Measures include law revisions to help South Korean oil refining company S-Oil secure construction sites for a large-scale petrochemical plant in the southeastern city of Ulsan as part of the $7 billion Saudi Aramco-backed Shaheen project. The refiner has been facing difficulties in securing sites for plant facilities such as storage yards and parking lots due to an act on industrial cluster development. The Sphere K-pop Arena project is also to benefit from the newly announced plan. Currently, the U.S. company is looking to break ground on the venue before 2025 in Hanam, just south of Seoul. The expected feasibility study period, as of now, is over 42 months, but the government's fast-track administrative procedures will shorten it by half. Special rules on hazardous material management will shorten the construction time for battery factories and reduce cost for South Korean battery makers. LG Energy Solution, SK On, and others are planning to invest nearly 2 trillion won, or over $1.5 billion over the next couple of years to build new facilities in the Chungcheongnam and Pukto provinces. Other projects on the government support list include the establishment of a world-class arts center branch in the southeastern city of Busan and a new airport in the country's southeastern region. 신세벽, Arirang News.
South Korea has been removed from the U.S. government's currency monitoring list for the first time in 7 years. The U.S. Treasury on Tuesday released a semi-annual report that reviewed the foreign exchange policies of its 20 major trading partners against 3 thresholds. Those that meet 2 of the 3 criteria are placed on its monitoring list. South Korea and Switzerland were removed from the list, while China, Germany, Taiwan are among those that remain. The criteria include a trade surplus with the United States of at least $15 billion, a material current account surplus of at least 3% of the country's GDP, and persistent net foreign currency purchases of at least 2% of GDP over a year. South Korea and Italy's heads of state will meet later today for summit talks in Seoul during Italian President Sergio Mattarella's 3-day state visit. According to the top office, President Yoon Suk-yeol will hold a welcoming ceremony at the Yongsan Presidential Office before their summit talks, which are expected to cover economic cooperation, science, and technology. The leaders will also hold a signing ceremony for MOUs and then a joint press conference to announce the outcomes. The Italian president touched down in the country on Tuesday at Seoul Air Base. South Korea is his first stop on his mission to strengthen Italy's interests in Asia and cooperation with what Italian media calls partners of great strategic importance. South Korea has secured hundreds of millions of dollars in foreign direct investment commitments in high-tech industries, ranging from semiconductors to future cars. They were pledged in light of Invest Korea Summit that was held in Busan this year. An Sung-jin was there.
Invest Korea Summit 2023, which nearly 1,000 foreign investors, domestic and overseas companies, and government officials attended, is the largest domestic event promoting foreign investment. Through the summit on Tuesday, the Trade Ministry announced that nearly $950 million worth of foreign direct investment has been pledged to the high-tech industry, particularly in the field of carbon neutrality, quantum computing, future cars, and semiconductors. Despite reduced global investment due to economic uncertainty, South Korea has reached its highest ever aggregate foreign direct investment this year, up to September, of approximately 31 trillion won, or $24 billion. It also saw an on-year increase of 37.5% of large quantity investments, where more than $300 million were traded. As South Korea garners attention as a hub for the energy and semiconductor industries, the country will continue to see a growing amount of foreign direct investment. 2 foreign investors, one of whom secured a deal with a Korean company, suggested potential favorable aspects that make Korea a destination for investors.
Korea is a very attractive market. It's a very outgoing and also technology-guided semiconductor and biotechnology or pharma and such kind of things is definitely a future market.
We recognize the strength and reliability of Korean energy off-takers as customers, but also as really equity partners in our overall energy developments. It also is the commitment by Korean companies to also be very front-footed in the development and roll out an application of the new clean energy technologies.
Apart from the perspective of foreign investors, Trade Minister Bang Mong-gyu said there are other aspects that mark Korea as an attractive market.
A high level of industrial competitiveness, innovation capacity, and an FTA agreement network are the nation's key strengths for foreign direct investment.
Minister Bang also emphasized the role of foreign direct investment companies in Korea's move towards becoming a high-tech industry powerhouse. He also added that government supports these efforts, such as expanding the global supply chain, securing manufacturing capability, and strengthening the technology innovation ecosystem will be necessary. 안성진, Arirang News, Busan.
Now, over in Gaza, where Israeli forces continue their offensive against Hamas, the IDF says they're now in the heart of Gaza City, and over 14,000 Hamas targets have been hit. Amid the rising civilian death toll, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu once again says no ceasefire unless all the hostages are released. Lee Seung-jae has more.
The Israeli military continues to push forward with their air and ground offensives, with Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant announcing on Tuesday that the Israel Defense Forces troops are now in the heart of Gaza City. Gallant said the forces moved in with coordination from its Air Force and Navy. IDF spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari reiterated Israel's stance that there will be no ceasefire as it continues with its offensives in the Gaza Strip. Answering calls for a humanitarian ceasefire and criticism that too many Palestinian civilians have been killed, Hagari said that the IDF has hit more than 14,000 Hamas targets in the region, destroyed more than 100 tunnels, and captured 4,000 weapons, which he said were hidden in civilian infrastructure. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also reiterated his stance on Tuesday that there will be no fuel delivered to Gaza, nor a ceasefire with Hamas, unless hostages seized by the Palestinian militant group are freed. The comments were made during a televised statement marking 1 month since Hamas launched an attack against Israel on October 7th. The Prime Minister also warned Iran-backed Hezbollah that it would be making the mistake of its life if it opens a new front in the armed conflict from its base in Lebanon. While Netanyahu called on Palestinian civilians to move south for their own safety, he made it clear that Israel will not stop with its offensives in the Gaza Strip. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is set to visit South Korea with Russia and North Korea's military cooperation likely to be discussed. He is expected to arrive in South Korea tonight after taking part in G7 foreign ministers meeting in Tokyo. Blinken is scheduled to hold a meeting with his South Korean counterpart Park Jin on Thursday and also meet with President Yoon Suk-yeol during his 2-day visit. He will likely discuss measures to prevent North Korea's further arms cooperation with Russia, as well as ways to strengthen security and economic cooperation between Seoul and Washington. The top U.S. diplomat last visited South Korea in March 2021. There are rising concerns over bedbugs in South Korea, with at least 30 cases having been reported as of Monday. To contain further spread, authorities will conduct intense inspections and pest control on transportation and accommodation facilities for 4 weeks. Our Lee Eun-hee reports.
South Korean authorities are fighting bedbugs amid growing public concern as the number of outbreaks, as reported by the Special Response Team on Monday, surpassed 30. The first outbreak was reported in September, which was followed by reports in 17 regions across South Korea, including cities and provinces. Earlier in November, the Ministry of the Interior and Safety launched a special response to contain the growing bedbugs infestations. However, as the number of outbreaks increased, the matter was elevated to be overseen by the Prime Minister's office. A decision was made in the first related meeting held on Tuesday to intensify inspections and pest control starting Monday, focusing on public transportation and accommodation facilities for 4 weeks. In response to concerns about the effectiveness of currently approved bedbug pesticides available domestically, the government has decided to promptly import alternatives. And on the back of reports of bedbug infestations in France and the UK, demand for bedbug repellent in the local market has surged on year. According to reports on Monday, sales of bedbug repellent increased by 813% from the end of October to the 6th of November. Sales of mattress vacuum cleaners also increased by 610%. In addition, demand for products like bedbug traps, which were not popular last year, has also increased. Bedbugs do not transmit disease. However, the bites from these blood-feeding insects can cause itching and lead to secondary skin infections due to scratching. Guidelines published by the government say that when bedbugs are discovered, the use of high-temperature steamers and repellents is effective. When bitten by bedbugs, it is advised to first wash the area with water and soap. A visit to the doctor may also be required depending on symptoms. Authorities are also advising that travelers thoroughly disinfect luggage before storing for an extended period as a way to eradicate them. Before the latest bedbug outbreak in South Korea, only 9 such reports have been submitted to the government since 2014. Yoon-hee, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, South Korea is grappling with the growing threat of drugs, and sniffer dogs are at the front line of the battle, searching 1,000 items daily for any illegal substances. Our Choi Soo-hyung reports.
South Korea is facing an increasing illegal drug threat with a sharp rise in cases during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. This means that sniffer dogs at Incheon International Airport, which is on the country's front line, are also having busier days. They search around 1,000 items daily among the 600,000 pieces of cargo arriving at the airport's logistics center from abroad. These highly trained dogs can detect even tiny amounts of drugs as small as 0.1 of a gram from over 10 meters away.
We typically train them for 4 years. After qualifying in basic training, a select few undergo a 16-week specialized training program. From there, only a few of them become drug detection dogs deployed to work in ports and special cargo areas.
In 2020, sniffer dogs detected 3.4 kilograms of drugs, and this year, as of September, they have found 8.4 kilograms, primarily methamphetamine, also known as Philipon in South Korea. There are 94 drug detection dogs operated by customs inspectors, and out of these, 22 sniffers are actively working at Incheon Airport.
Here in South Korea, drug detection dogs currently used in operations are divided into 3 groups: dogs in training, ready for immediate deployment, and dogs awaiting retirement.
Handlers partner with sniffer dogs for about 5 years until the dogs retire at around 7 to 8 years old. Handlers also help find new homes for them after their retirement. Korea Customs Service dogs are mainly Labrador Retrievers and Spaniels, breeds known for their strong connection with humans, and these dogs find joy in their work and value their playtime with handlers as a reward.
In this era of pet dogs, people don't fear the animals usually, but some of them still freak out when they meet them at the airport. But detection dogs are gentle and friendly. If you encounter them at the airport, just step aside and wait for them to move, and your journey will be enjoyable with these friendly dogs around.
The KCS is considering ways to gradually increase the supply of sniffer dogs to further strengthen its drug prevention efforts. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In the UK, the state opening of Parliament commenced on Tuesday by the new British monarch, King Charles III. In the first King's speech in more than 70 years, King Charles delivered the government's plans in a ceremony marking the first day of a new parliamentary session. In the speech, the King outlined Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's planned legislation, which included approval of new oil and gas development in the North Sea, curbing of smoking by minors, support for Ukraine and humanitarian aid to Gaza. King Charles made a special mention of South Korea's President Yoon and First Lady Kim, saying that he is looking forward and welcomes the South Korean state visit due later this month. President Yoon Suk-yeol will visit Britain this month at the invitation of King Charles III to mark the 140th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Korea and Britain. In Asia, Myanmar's military government on Tuesday began its first joint naval exercise with Russia in the Andaman Sea. The three-day joint maritime security exercise involving aircraft as well as naval vessels focuses on land, air, and sea defense tactics. The drills will last until Thursday. Since Aung San Suu Kyi's elected government was ousted by the country's military in February 2021, Myanmar has seen the violent suppression of democratic protests, leading to thousands of deaths. Russia and China are major weapons suppliers of Myanmar's military government, with 28 Russian private and public companies transferring weapons such as advanced missile systems and fighter jets to the country since the 2021 coup d'etat. A UN human rights report on Myanmar's human rights situation in May outlined that Russia has supplied $406 million and China $267 million of weapons and material to Myanmar's military government since 2021. In the US, the co-working space company WeWork filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection on Monday in New Jersey. After years of financial problems that has led to a net long-term debt of $2.9 billion and with over $13 billion of long-term leases, the cornered company stated that it is to erase about $3 billion of debt through a restructuring support agreement. WeWork, which as of June offered modern office spaces in 777 locations in 39 countries, was once hailed as an exemplary unicorn startup and valued as high as $47 billion. It suffered from a 98% decline in its share prices this year. In Europe, the French military leader Napoleon Bonaparte's hat is up for auction. The iconic bicorn black beaver felt hat is expected to fetch around $850,000 at auction. It has been the trademark of the late 18th and early 19th century leader's attire, along with his frock coat. Napoleon's hat will be on sale at the Ozena auction house in Fontainebleau, Paris on November 19th. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
On peut pas faire plus symbolique que ça.
Good afternoon. It's Ipdong today, marking the onset of winter on the seasonal calendar. And it surely was an early winter-like morning across Korea, with many places seeing the first frost and ice of the season. But the early cold snap eases this afternoon. Even a cold wave advisory in parts of Gyeongsang-do provinces have also been lifted. Afternoon highs are going up to norms today, nearly 5 degrees higher than yesterday here in Seoul. So a morning winter jacket might feel too warm for the day. Then Mother Nature will give us a break from early winter weather tomorrow. Sunny skies to start out the day, then more clouds will be rolling in as the day goes on. Highs will go up 4 to 5 degrees higher this afternoon in most places. Seoul topping out at 15 degrees, Busan at 20 degrees this afternoon. Then the early winter chill returns on Friday, and the weekend is set to be a freezing one, with morning temperatures dropping to sub-zero levels here in Seoul, so please stay warm. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
A low birth rate is not just a problem for South Korea. It's also hitting China, which was once known for its one-child policy, which restricted many families to a single child in a bid to curb the population growth rate. But since 2016, the country moved swiftly to a two-child and even a three-child policy, while rolling out incentives like tax cuts and cash rewards. But none of them work so well. And China's population, its major economic driving force, has now been overtaken by India. Seeking a reverse, President Xi Jinping recently called on women to stay home, saying they should pursue the traditional virtue of establishing a good family. But that objective will face challenges of its own, as more children will mean more money is needed, and both parents working is better than one. That is all for today. Thanks for watching.